Good morning, friends. Welcome back to that 1870s homestead. My name's Rachel, and today we're doing something out of the rain because it is just rainy all day. Farm stand's closed, and because it rained, I needed to run out. It's going to be like a lot of rain because it's that hurricane barrel that's coming through, or tropical storm. I needed to go out and harvest those onions that I mentioned in the last gardening video. I could leave out just a little bit longer. I didn't want them to get that rainy and expose them to potentials for rot. So I harvested probably somewhere between a third and a half of them, and we're going to start the curing process. And I thought some of you guys might want to see and learn a little bit more about curing your onions. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I have a lot of onions to lay out, but first let me start by showing you what Todd threw together for me, and I'll tell you about kind of all the systems we've used in the past. So it's all recycled material. This 2x4 frame used to be part of a roof over a goat shelter. And now that we don't have our goats right now, we are just reusing this material as we find purposes for it. So it's quite a large frame. I'd say it's probably close to 6 feet long and, I don't know, 4 feet wide. And then this is just chain link fence. And he has this, maybe you can see here, stapled in with some fence staples, pulled taut. Now the holes are going to be a little too big for some of my onions. That's okay. I'll show you how I get around that. But this is what we're going with, and it's in the shadiest section of my outdoor porch. Okay, now regarding why you want to store onions or cure your onions, number one, it helps for storage. So if you're growing onions for the purposes of preserving them and having them in your pantry or down in, your cold room or storage, whatever you use for extended shelf life, these onions, not the reds don't store as long. So the reds will probably last me till January. But the yellow onions and my white onions, I can get all the way till like starting at March. I'll start checking them for going bad. Actually, every time you go in the pantry, you should really check your produce and make sure nothing's rotting down there. And then also, it'll really sweeten the onion. All onions are going to be sweet, but they're certainly going to be spicy straight out of the garden. So, and we eat them that way. Once you cook them, they mellow out, but if you eat a raw onion that hasn't been cured, it's going to be pretty spicy. So those are the two main reasons. Now once these dry, the green tops will turn all soft and papery, and that's when you can braid them if you want like pretty onion braids. So you can braid them and store them that way, and just hang them up so that they continue to have that good air circulation. What I tend to do is just, I used to do that just because it was cute, but it was more of a hassle than anything, and I like to just grab and go, and why do the extra step for me anyway? And I just chop the tops off and then put them in a crate and down in my basement. And we are in Michigan, so our basement isn't super humid. Probably the right level of humidity for a pantry, and it doesn't have any standing water in it that I have to worry about, and it stays quite cool in the non-summer months. So I would say like 55, 60 degrees. So. All right, I'm almost through this first basket, and like I said, this is about a third to a half of the harvest is the 2 baskets, and then we'll get out there maybe next week. I'll keep checking them daily and see if I need to pull any, but the rest still had pretty firm necks, so that's kind of step one of identifying when your onions are ready to harvest. I never ever get really big red onions. That's probably a decent sized red onion for me. Anyway, if you have questions on curing onions, or if you've found a better method that works for you and you'd like to share it with others, go ahead. This is definitely one of those things that there's 1,000 ways to do it. You just want to do it. So find the method that works for you. Use the space that you have around your home, and your onions will last you a lot longer than if you just, cut them and put them in your fridge. Or, sometimes I question those potatoes and onions and things we get from the grocery store, like they are not curing these things right, because they go bad so fast, or they've been sitting around for 6 months already. So I guess that could be it too. All right, I'll see you guys on the next video, and thanks for coming along and just following my little gardening journey and producing the food for our family. And I typically get a lot of comments about the quantity of onions we grow, but we do use them all. We eat onions almost daily in our food. And onions are so good for you, by the way. We make our own French onion soup. We make a delicious onion jam. Onions go in a ton of my canning recipes, pickles, spaghetti sauce, salsa, right? So we need just a lot of onions just for the purposes of canning other products. So it takes a lot of onions, a lot more than you think, to just have the purposes of an onion sliced. It's a common ingredient in many, many dishes. All right, I think we're done. Yes. So that is harvest number 1 of our onions. About half the table is full, and I'm like I said, a third through half the way through my onion harvest. So these are going to cure probably for the next 2 weeks right here, and then as they once they're dry, I'll take them inside and we'll store them. If you have any questions, I did think of something when I was wrapping this up. The green onion tops. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments like, you can totally use those for many things. We do. So I don't need this first round. I still have tons of what we use it for is our own onion powder. So we take them up. It doesn't take a lot. And then we'll freeze dry them. You could dehydrate them. If you don't have a dehydrator, just air dry them. They're not going to have that vibrant green color. If you do it that way, and then you just throw them in a blender and powder them, and you have your own faux onion powder. I mean, it is onion powder, but it's just not made from the onion bulb. So that's what we use for onion powder instead of store-bought onion powder. But you could also, from the whites of the necks up to the greens, if they're still firm, you could dice and chop those, store them in your freezer for sautés and soup stews, things like that. But this is all just going to get dried. When it's dried, like I mentioned, I'll just trim the dried leaves off at the neck and then store them in crates down in my basement. So hopefully you appreciated the video. If you did, I would love it if you'd share it with your friends and family that are going on this gardening journey with you. And like I said, if you have other techniques or other ways that you have found beneficial, leave it in the comments below, because I'm sure we'll always have something to learn from one another. So happy growing, happy gardening where you guys are.